Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, dignitaries of Lokmanya Seva Sangha, Parle, Mr. Mukund Chitale, President, Mr. Deepak Gaisal, Vice President, Mr. Uday Tardalkar, Chairman, our distinguished guest, Chief Guest, Mr. Ashish Chauhan, MD and CEO, NSE, we extend our warm welcome to this program. May I now request Mr. Deepak Gaisal, Vice President, Lokmanya Seva Sangha Parle, to invite Mr. Ashish Chauhan, Managing Director and CEO, National Stock Exchange, to the dais. May I request Mr. Uday Tardalkar, Chairman, Lokmanya Seva Sangha Parle, to accompany them. We now commence our program by offering a garland, our respect to Lokmanya Tilak at the hands of today's chief guest, Mr. Ashish Chauhan. May I also request Mrs. Rashmi Fadnavis, Mr. Mahesh Kale, Mr. Alok Hardikar, and Mr. Mahadev Bede to be on the stage. May I request all present here to rise for the Maharashtra Rajya Geet. Before we proceed with our program, I will invite Mr. Uday Tardalkar, Chairman, Lokmanya Seva Sangha Parle, to say a few words about the institution and set the ground for today's session. Mr. Uday Tardalkar.
Good evening, everyone. Dignitaries on the dais, Mr. Ashishkumar Chauhan, MD, CEO, NSE, Vice President, Mr. Deepak Gaisal, all the dignitaries and from Lokmanya Seva Sangha and, of course, the Parlekars. It's a great privilege to be here on this, what I can call it as a chain of events that we organized since 10th of this month. And as the object of our Lokmanya Seva Sangha, one of the objectives is investor education, and we have been running this institution, Ashish Bhai, from 1987. Mr. Principal Lime, he was the founder of this institute, and much before even the regulator thought of doing anything, we have been conducting sessions for us. Every alternate Sundays, we have eminent speakers coming here and guiding our members. Besides that, we also hold one-to-one session for the benefit of investors with their difficulties. Of course, that is everything is kept in secret, and all this is free of cost. And we have been conducting these sessions, and a lot of recognition we got. We are also one of the first institution which got permanent recognition from SEBI as investor education. So that's the track record we have, and that's only the glimpse of what we do. Founded in 1923, Lokmanya Seva Sangha is one of the oldest and highly reputed social organization in the country. And before the dawn of actual CSR concept, LSS is popularly known as Tilak Mandir, because this is the Mandir for Lokmanya Tilak, as we call it, from the its inception. And all the Parlekars are, you can call as Bhaktas of this Lokmanya. So that is why this is known as Tilak Mandir. And in that context, when we started, there were only 5 branches, as we call them, and based on the need and empowerment session we had. We also had gymnasium. So all related to the activities, what we call related to the people, what they need at large. And of course, over a period, although we stuck to the basics, we have made changes the way we conduct our institution. Just to give an example, on the we have elections, Ashish bhai, for election of managing committee. And the last election, which was held last year in 2022, we had conducted this election in electronic format, and the result came in flat 15 minutes. And probably, which was one of the few institutions or even a cooperative banks where we conduct these elections. And that's why I think people of Vile Parle, they think that this is the place where their cultural development happens throughout their lives. Like we have activities spanning from, say, vaccination to the newborn child till Anand Dham. We don't call it as an old age home. That is, we call it Anand Dham, and we have spread across 3 places, 2 in Vile Parle and 1 at Khopoli. So even the child, before he knows anything, he gets a vaccination free of cost from Lokmanya Seva Sangh, and that is how he grows. Then he comes to the gymnasium. We have a creche, we have a library. In fact, our library is consisting of almost 80,000 books on various languages and subjects. Besides that, we also have women empowerment branch, youth empowerment branch, and a couple of things which we do in line with what the nation wants. So we have a branch called Dilasa, that is counseling for old age people. During the Corona period, we had almost 950 cases which came to us through a phone line, and we actually helped them. It is headed by Mrs. Parekh, who is a retired judge from family court. So we get eminent personalities to help us and to take various issues of what society faces to forward. Besides that, we also have what we call as Nagrik Dakshata Shakha, which takes care of the environment issues. We ran a campaign in Vile Parle to have plastic mukta Vile Parle, even the spitting, which is one of the menace in the country as a whole. So we also conducted a lot of programs for that. And overall, it's really the Lokmanya Tilak was known as Lokamanya because of his lifestyle, what he did for the country. So we always try to thrive that our institution carries that name, and we are also Lokmanya to the people at large, whatever we do by our act. Otherwise, we will not have justification using the Lokmanya Seva Sangha as a word. And in fact, when we started, the eminent scholar, Mr. Tatyasaheb Kelkar, had come here, and he gave a slogan to us in Marathi. I'll call it, I know your Marathi is little bit weak, but that's what he said. Seva karavaya lava devha yogya chakara. That we are the servants. We want to be fit to serve the society. That was the theme he put it in front of us. And we are lucky that all our generations and the founders, what the photograph is there, these are the founders who had a vision to take this, what you call social act throughout, and we are lucky really to be here on this occasion that we are celebrating 100th year of our organization. Resident of Parle, always they have been known for stock market investments. In fact, one study which was conducted early 2010 that indicated that even today, for that matter, almost you are the best to, in fact, corroborate that. Almost 40% of the investment in IPO comes from Mumbai. And out of that 40% is from 400057, Vile Parle East, that is the pin code. So that's the vision we have, and Principal Lime, in fact, taught us a lot of things right from reading balance sheet, but not that just. There is a big concept across about dividend yield. But let me tell you, Ashish bhai, we had a lot of seniors who are members. They, post-retirement, their livelihood depend only on dividend. Thanks to government now there is a tax, but barring that, they had their living on dividend. So that kind of what you can conservatism, Principal Lime taught us as far as investments are concerned, and never to give any tips from the market, and in fact, right from filing returns online, we give all sorts of training to the members who come here at large, and it's not just members, anyone can step in and attend our programs. That is how we did. In fact, recently, we conduct a lot of investor education programs, as I told you. We started taking it outside. So we held one session in one of the colleges in Vadala, that is Vadala, the Vidyalankar Institute. We had one for senior citizens, how to make will, where NSDL people helped us. So our attempt is to take it outside. In fact, we would love to have tie-up with NSC also on that matter, where we can look forward to take this outside our institute, because that is more relevant. And now some people started also looking at schools for the financial literacy. So maybe those kind of things we can really look for, and we can take. Just to correlate with something with the current situation, before I conclude, we are talking about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and we always look upon that we are lagging behind in the world in terms of the word production. From agriculture, we just took a step and we went to service industry. And a lot of focus is given on the production now. The vision of Lokmanya, that in the year 1914, he came up with a concept called Paisa Fund, like a mutual fund what we have. He contemplated that idea that we should have a Paisa Fund which can be used for manufacturing activity. That was the concept Lokmanya had put in that time. And our people also, as these institutes were formed in 23, 5 years down the line, we formed something what is called known as Katkasar Fund. Katkasar is basically savings. And we offered these two schemes to our members, like a saving bank. Of course, there was no NBFC that time. So the members used to invest money or put their money in Lokmanya Seva Sangh, and once a month they were allowed to withdraw the funds, and they used to get whatever interest at that prevailing time. So basic idea what Lokmanya had that time, I think still applicable today. So that is the vision of Lokmanya, and I think that is the true leadership what we follow. That's not a politician but a statesman thinking of generations to come. And we are lucky to have been witnessing this 100th year, and another 100 years, something new milestones will come. So we look forward for your address, and thank you all of you.
Thank you, Chairman, sir. Before we proceed, let me do a brief introduction of our chief guest today. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce today's chief guest, Mr. Ashish Chauhan, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, National Stock Exchange of India Limited. He has completed his engineering at IIT Powai and PGDM at IIM Kolkata. He started his career as a banker in IDBI in 1991 and was selected as one of the founder member of team of 5 to set up the National Stock Exchange. He played a key role in setting up the NSE screen-based trading and also creating Nifty Index, and shouldered several key responsibilities during his tenure with NSE. He is considered as the father of modern financial derivatives due to his work at NSE from 1993 to 2000. NSE is ranked #1 for derivatives trading and amongst top 5 exchanges for equities trading in the world. The market capitalization of listed companies at NSE is close to USD 3.5 trillion. Post NSE, he was with Reliance Industries, largest company for a period of 2000 to 2009 as President and Group Chief Information Officer, as well as the Head of Corporate Communication. He has been CEO of IPL cricket team Mumbai Indians in its initial years. Mr. Ashish Chauhan moved to BSE as Deputy CEO in 2010 and later became the MD and CEO of the exchange. His select achievements during BSE tenure is, he is credited with reviving BSE operations and making a public offering and listing the shares on NSE, has set up IFFC Gift City Exchange, which was inaugurated by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. BSE has innovated distribution platform for mutual funds by setting up a BSE Star MF platform. He introduced mobile stock trading for investors making BSE the fastest stock exchange in the world with 6 microseconds response time by changing the technology completely. He has been recognized with several Indian and international awards, including top 50 CIOs in the world for Information Week, United States, Digital Icon of the Year, Asian Banker of the Year, to name a few. He has served on, and it's part of several policy committees of government, including Ministry of Finance, Education, MSME, CMDT, as well as regulators such as RBI and SEBI. He has also headed the South Asia Federation of Exchanges, consisting of more than 20 exchanges. Currently, he is a member of the board at the World Federation of Exchanges. He is serving as the Chancellor of University of Allahabad, one of the oldest university in India. He is also on the board of prestigious government institutions like IIMs, National Institute of Financial Management, NITs, and IITs. He is also a distinguished visiting faculty at Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada, honorary professor at Nottingham University Business School, United Kingdom. He has co-authored a book titled BSE, The Temple of Wealth Creation, and a book titled Sthita Pragya, The Process of Maintaining an Equilibrium, has been written on his own life journey. Due to his varied experience, he is considered among the foremost experts in the field of fintech, market microstructure, transaction processing, corporate governance, finance, regulatory policies, business, technology, cricket, and social issues of India. Let us extend a warm welcome to Mr. Ashish Chauhan, our today's chief guest. May I now request Mr. Deepak Gaisas, Vice President, Lokmanya Seva Sangha Parle, to felicitate our chief guest. We are felicitating by a bouquet of flowers. A miniature statue of Lokmanya Seva. A photo frame depicting Trimurti, symbol of the institution Lokmanya Seva Sangha, Parle, and a personalized writing pen with name engraved on it. Thank you. May I now request our distinguished guest speaker to speak on the topic Technology Evolution in Indian Stock Markets 1875 to 2023. Ashish, over to you.
Shri Mukunji Chitle, Shri Deepak Gaisas, Shri Uday Tardalkar, Shri Dhruv Patil, my senior from the industry, Shri Bhagirath Merchant, my friend from college days. In fact, there are many now in the audience, Shri Muang Parajpe, and my professional colleagues like Shri Gadre. I can see a lot of familiar faces here in this place today, and it's an honor and privilege to be present here on this occasion of celebrating 100 years of this Tilak Mandir and Lokmanya Seva Sangh. In some ways, you would have figured I am a teacher. I like teaching, and I have been doing job because I had to earn. But effectively, I like teaching, and I have been taking courses since 1998. Not full time, but I have taken probably more courses than most full-time professors in different areas, and I continue to teach in different places even now. In some ways, I can go on the history. Whenever I go, because I have been associated with stock markets, especially automation of stock markets, for last 32 years in India, and that's why people know my name. They know that this person is a CEO of BSE or now CEO of NSE. They come to listen to me saying that some tips would be available. And so, of course, Udayji, who knows me well, that I don't invest, I'm not allowed to invest. And I teach investments, but I'm not allowed to invest. So it is like a person who is teaching swimming without actually swimming himself. And so sometimes I also wonder that when will I use all this? Probably after retirement. I tried to retire last year, but somehow destiny had other plans, and I came to NSE as CEO. In some ways, many times you define technology as information technology because that's what we get used to today, last 20, 30 years. We think technology means information technology. It is not. For me, technology is something which allows you to do things differently, old things differently, and sometimes create completely new concepts altogether. And the history of stock markets has a backstory which is going back to India. Around 2,000 years back, probably 3,000 years back, somebody invented decimal system. That was the start of the backstory of businesses which could grow large. If you are running small business, you could just do calculations in your mind. And if you have ever wondered about how do you do multiplication in Roman numerals, have you tried that? When Roman numerals that are written this way, can you ever multiply them or divide them or do anything with them? This is the place, India. It is in a way, when we were far ahead of the rest of the world, probably 2,000 to 3,000 years back, and many things we invented those days. The most phenomenal invention was this decimal system, which allowed pretty much every type of activity to continue. I am not taking you to the science side, but just the side of the commerce. And this decimal system was a phenomenal achievement. Of course, it took long time to spread across in India, but it also got spread over the other parts. And that's how when the Muslims came, attacked India, they took a lot of slaves, a lot of other material back, but they also took away something very precious, which is the decimal system. And they invented further on that, they developed further on that. And we continued to go into our shell because of these external attacks. We did not develop on our sciences, our mathematics and other things. We became very conscious of our hierarchy only, rather than using our knowledge to actually win the world or at least protect ourselves. And those guys came, they learned this decimal systems, and then they also won over part of Europe. And they took that decimal system to Europe. That's why in Europe, it is called Arabic numerals. And in Arabia, it's called Hindu numerals. So it's basically what went from here. They were messengers, but they became the message. So have you heard of algorithm? So it comes out of somebody, Al-Khwarizmi, okay? That was a person who used to give some of those if kind of logics using our own sort of treatise in Sanskrit. And that is why slowly it became algorithm, which we currently know as algorithm, right? There was a book written in Arab, Al-Jibr, something else, Al-Muqabla, which is to basically do that equal sign is there, which is the Al-Muqabla part when you equalize. And that's where basically that word slowly became, that book became a phenomenal book, which a lot of Europeans learned from, and that's how it became algebra. So why I'm telling you this is, there is a backstory which India had a very central role to play. And then later on, the science developed largely in that side of the world. We continue to remain in our shell. And then somewhere on the line, a lot of material used to go from India to Europe via the Silk Route. And the Turkey, Istanbul, used to be the place through which you went from Asia into Europe. It's basically if you have been to Turkey, you will realize that there is a big river in between. I mean, in Istanbul itself, it's divided into two parts. That river is actually not a river, it is a sea. It's called Bosphorus. And on this side is Asia, the other side is Europe. And so Turkey was a pretty important place, and it used to be called Constantinople in olden days. And then the Muslims took over, and they started putting a lot of taxes on non-believers. And that's how a lot of people in Europe could not afford, and they wanted to find a new way so that they couldn't pay taxes. And they started trying to come to India, and that time, a new theory came, which actually went from India, about Earth being round. And if Earth is so round, then if you continue to go west, you will reach east. That was the logic. And a lot of such initiatives came about. And what we call now venture capitalists or angel investors, they started funding many such initiatives. One of them was supposed to be an Italian, a guy called Christopher Columbus. He ended up meeting the Spanish kings, and king said, no, I'll not fund you. Like all venture capitalists, if you have tried, I have tried. Most venture capitalists don't fund you. They just give you nice stuff, and then they give you a way to say, come next time, but this time no, right? So all moneyed people do that. And of course, they have a lot of demand on their money by a lot of us, which is bound to happen. But Spanish king, I make up some of these stories, so don't believe them. But he went to Spanish king, and he asked him for money to go to west and then reach the east, that is place to India, the route to India. And so finally he could figure out how to reach the money. He went to Spanish king's mother and asked her whether she would fund him, and she actually funded him. And that's how he started going in search of India to west, and somewhere he reached the land after a long time, a land mass. He had actually 3 ships. He reached the land mass, and actually it was not land mass at all, it was an island. And then he got down, and whoever met first, he called them Indian. That is how, when you go to America, it is not actually America. What you know as West Indies was what he actually arrived at. But that's how American Indians, who are natives of that place, are called Indians, not because of American Indians. They were supposed to be Indians in the minds of our friend Christopher Columbus and all the Europeans, because they started calling them Indians. And of course, Spain actually ended up getting a lot of gold from the Incas and all. But that is not the crux of the story. But there was one more guy, similar guy, got the venture funding and came on the eastern route. And those days, ships were not large. They didn't know how to navigate so well. So they used to actually navigate on the sea coast only. So while navigating on the sea coast, if you see Portugal, it's on the south of Europe, very close to Asia actually. And he started coming there. And many people would go back, but he came to Cape of Good Hope. And that time, Indians had developed a mechanism, a methodology of understanding the winds across the Arabian Sea and also on the other side, on the eastern coast. And eastern coast used to go up to Japan, our own traders. And that's how we became, Hinduism became very important in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Thailand, and so on and so forth, on a sea route basis. But that is not the story. The story was on this side. And that guy reached Cape of Good Hope. And lo and behold, who does he find? He finds a Gujarati, who had come to trade on the sea route, but he knew the easier route, using the wind on a particular time of the year, that will take him to Cochin, the southernmost part, and then he would travel to Gujarat from there. And that's how Vasco da Gama was the name. He came down, I think it was 1498. And that's how, again, India had a very big role to play in figuring out the modern shipping. modern sort of how the large things developed, how the large enterprises developed. And so that's how this new route opened up to come to India. And those guys had guns, better guns than even Muslims. And that's how they came. They said, we want to trade, but if you don't give me the stuff free, I kill you, right? So that was the trade. They would invest 10,000 rupees into a ship and take back 10 lakh rupees. That's what now the promises of all the new ventures are, right? And those days, those guys would come with small ships, large ships, and slowly, I mean, if you're going anyway, might as well take large ships, right? And nobody, I mean, initial money was funded by the king and queen and everyone, but slowly the traders started getting together. And they started funding a large ship. And that's how the large shipbuilding happened. The large ships would come to India, they'll take the material, go back, and that's where basically the new framework started, that people started getting together, investing into the particular voyage on the sea, and with a promise that whenever it comes back, they will get 10 times, 100 times more money. And there used to be a register, that is the notebook at the seashore, and everyone's name is written on that, that this person has so much, this person has so much stake. And that is how, when the voyage came back, if at all, because it used to be very difficult voyage, right? Because there will be pirates, there will be a lot of ships getting sunk. But in case it came back, it will come back with, it's like exactly today's ventures. Most of them don't actually do anything. But at least the promise is that when it comes back, we'll do something, right? And so that's where basically this thing continued, and larger ships came. The register became larger and larger. But it would take probably 6 months, probably a year for voyage to come back from Europe. And that's where in between, suppose you have invested so much money in the voyage, and in between you need the money, what will you do? You will tell your friends, you will tell your brother, give me some money. He will say, no, my money is invested. But if you say, no, I will give you that stake in the voyage, then he will say, okay, you convert it into my name, some portion, and then I will give you that money, right? So that's how the secondary trading started. That register, where people's names were written, is now known as what? Register of companies, right? And then so many voyages started coming to India, to Latin America. A lot of new companies happened. And so all these, they developed a new, sort of new group of people who would specialize in buying the stake in voyages or newer initiatives, because they started now saying that I will not send only one message, one voyage, but I will continue to send voyages, and you can do sort of invest in that, and you will continue to make more and more profits. And that's how, in a way, a going concern came into picture. A lot of monies, a lot of people's money got pulled. This register business happened. Now, there was an interesting conundrum those days, which I think Mukundji would now appreciate, or at least he has made a business out of it. That is, what is a profit? You send the voyage comes back, and you think it was supposed to make profit, but the cost of voyage would have been so much that it is actually in loss. At least that is how the person who is wanting to take away your profit will try to show. That's how now we know that as a corporate governance, right, or lack of it, when these things happen. So there was a need to figure out what exactly is the profit of the company. And there required a methodology to do accounting. India had a brilliant method, but it was a single entry bookkeeping system. In a way, many of these frameworks went from here to, now also many Marwadi businesses use something called Padta. I don't know if you have heard of it, but it is very effective. It also is very MIS type and very, very interesting methodology. But whatever the case, there was a book that was written by a guy called Luca Pacioli that came out in Italy. He was an Italian priest, on accounting, double entry bookkeeping system. Now, whenever I read all this, it's information for many of you, right? And it used to be true for me also. But I used to always think, यार, priest को accounting लिखने की क्या जरूरत पड़ी? Priest धर्म ध्यान करेगा. Priest can do everything, but why would he write accounting? But then it occurred to me, you know, the Catholic priest also invented the watch because they had to pray at particular times of the day. That's how exact watches. And in India, we had a sunlight pretty much 12 months a year, so we didn't have to do that. They developed slightly differently, but again, that is besides the point. This guy actually created this, wrote that book, not that he invented, on the double entry bookkeeping system. And the fact is, from time immemorial, the only group of people, only institutions which had surpluses of any type were the religious places. And that is why, and they used to have, they still have a very beautiful business model, right? Most people work free, and still they pay, right? So it's a beautiful model, and that's how they used to have a lot of money, and then they used to give it to the kings for fighting wars, and then take interest, and that's how they required to keep accounts of who was given how much, and that's why. So I give you basically three things. One is the invention of decimal system or zero. Second was the voyage business, and then formation of large pooling of money. And third was this accounting system. These were the base blocks which are being created for even a greater activity. And so now you have all the base activity available, that you have pooling of money, you have accounting, what is profit, what is not, and then how to actually account, that is the decimal system. And then now you have voyages, ships. Just before I conclude that portion, they used to also give some stake to the captain of the ship and also some workers. And that is now known as ESOP, right? Because otherwise, the voyage will go, come back, but the captain, instead of coming to Portugal, he will take it to Spain, sell the material, and stay there. Right? So you have to give him incentives and also disincentives. So his parents, his children, all were kept hostages, so that he doesn't run away. But many of them still ran away because they can have a second wife, you know, another country, and stuff like that, which is what our promoters many times do, right? But basically, these were the building blocks getting created. For me, these are all different technologies. Without them, the large enterprises could not happen. And then a new framework started coming up, which is what we call companies, which are different from partnerships, because they were continual businesses, doing very many businesses, pulling money from people who had, putting into businesses, and then coming back, giving them more profits. And that's how a new sort of group of people developed who used to sit in coffee houses or loiter around the seashore. If you have not observed, almost all the old exchanges in the world developed on the seashore or on a port. Why? Is because the voyages would come, they will figure out that voyages come, and that's how all these things will happen. And they used to basically loiter around, like we go to, at least in earlier times, in my childhood, you go to movie theater, and Amitabh Bachchan movie has come, that there would be one person moving around saying Ekkadas, Ekkadas, you recall that? So those people used to move around, and Europe is a cold place, right? So sometimes there used to be, especially winter, they couldn't loiter, and instead they used to started sitting in a coffee house. And then whoever had to buy or sell shares in those companies, they used to go into that place. And then when they became rich, because they could buy at 100 and sell at 200, nobody will know why, right? But whoever thought that they will get even more money out of 200, they would buy, right? That's how we do today. And that's where basically these people became rich. And when you become rich as a group, what do? First thing you go is you want monopoly, right? In those days, they used to call guilds. There used to be carpenter guilds. I don't know whether any one of you visit Brussels in Belgium. They take you as a tourist to a place where all the old guilds offices are there, big boards are there and all, and carpenters guild, blacksmiths guild, goldsmiths guild, all, and they would define the criteria of how to do it, the skills and all. But here, these guys basically got together, formed an association, and first thing they went was to go to king and gave him big gifts, which is now called bribe. But they gave it to the king and said, you give me the charter to do this business of stock trading in your jurisdiction, in the jurisdiction of this city, as a monopoly. And he said, gladly, you have given me so many gifts, future also I will keep on putting your taxes on you, but you have to continue to do this business here only. And that's how that association started getting known as stock exchange. And people who were members were considered or called brokers. And so these guilds, which is known as stock exchanges, started. First exchange of this type came up in Amsterdam in 1607. And it was a democracy. It preceded democracy, right? French Revolution came much later. But it was a guild-based democracy. And that democracy was of the brokers, by the brokers, for the brokers. Right? Then when we became independent, we took it and said, of the people, by the people, for the people, right? And so it was a constitutional framework, local monopolies, and that's how it happened there. And slowly, they became so important. The largest, before 1800, before 1700, before 1600, almost all societies were very, very, very poor. Only the kings or some few people had surpluses. They used to have a lavish life. Otherwise, literally, 99.99% people had no surpluses. They were living in abject poverty. And of course, they used to die like flies most times. And that's where whatever has happened over last 400-500 years in terms of the progress, even in the most undeveloped country, there has been a tremendous change in lifestyle, which has improved, is largely because of corporates or companies. Without companies, ability to collect pool of money from completely unrelated people, small, large, into starting new businesses, creating businesses, continuing them, this progress would not have happened. So it was actually a new technology of getting together, running businesses, creating agents who are now known as management of the companies and things like that. And that's how, for me, the corporates have been reason for great good in last 500 years, since probably 700 years if you go back to history. But in 500 years, they have been pretty impressive, and they combined with the Industrial Revolution. They combined with the social revolution in form of the democracies and other things. And that's how all of them feed on each other. But the technologies are the only thing that change the world. Society surrounds it. And what you see as democracy, what you see as anything else, is basically based out of these technologies. Now, this is basically the first part of the story. The second part is we were subjugated by Britishers using the same corporate structure called East India Company. So the corporates have been reason for great good in the world, but corporates have been also reason for great bad in the world. And that is what basically we have seen in East India Company. There are many such, what I call, behavior of corporate avarice that they get always blamed for everything that goes wrong. One of the reasons why corporates also get blamed is they are not natural entities. A dog doesn't have to justify his existence. A cat doesn't have to justify his actions. They exist. A human exists. But a company is actually a fiction of law. It is an entity which is separate from people who run it, people who own it. Then what it is? It is a collective fiction we have created. That's more philosophical. Why I'm giving you this perspective in concept of corporate governance, what is management. If you don't understand this in a most basic storytelling sense, you end up thinking, boss, ये लोग हर रोज आवाज करते हैं, मतलब क्या हुआ? So these are the basically small little stories I've created over the last 30, 35 years to tell myself and also everyone else, saying this is why it's so important that a lot of good things can come out of corporates. Of course, there are also individual initiatives, and everyone should get incentivized. For not working, they should get disincentivized. But overall, that's how the capitalism came. The market system became very, very strong. It's not that markets did not exist before, but effectively, in some ways, we were subjugated by Britishers. In 1850, in Britain, they created a new act called Companies Act. Companies Act 1850. That started allowing new companies to be formed in the dominions, which were also like India and all. And that's how basically we started forming our companies. Our first revolt happened in 1857, the large revolt against Britishers. Our first train came from CST to Thane in 1851, 1853. So it's the same time when all these things were happening. And post 1857, the British sort of rule got taken over from East India Company by the Queen, Victoria, right? So that is the 10 years period in which a lot of tumult happened on how India was being managed, how the new activities were going to happen. And that's where a lot of people started learning English. Most of them were Parsis, and some of the oldest businesses today actually belong to Parsis in India. If you've heard of Vadiyas, which is Bombay Dyeing, they were the largest shipbuilders for Britishers, even probably 200-300 years before the stock market came. But in 1860s, there was a civil war in US, and US had become a very large territory for UK to source a lot of material. They were sourcing a lot of cotton from there. But civil war happened, cotton stopped coming from US to the UK mills, and that's how India, being another place, they started sending a lot of cotton, and price of cotton went up by almost 10-20 times in probably 1 month or so. And a lot of people became rich. They started actually taking cotton out of their gadda, all those bed sheets and mattresses and everything, and started sending to UK. And after few years, whenever the civil war went down, the price of cotton came down to normal, and a lot of people became bankrupt also. So the boom and bust continues since then. But that time, a lot of people understood that if we are sending cotton there, instead, we can bring the machinery here, then using our own cotton, we can start producing clothes. And that's how one person called Premchand Roychand, he basically was a banker, he was a stockbroker, he was also a cotton trader, and he donated Rajabai Tower at Bombay University, if you have seen, at near High Court. That tower is called Rajabai Tower. I used to think it is Rajabhai Tower, but it is Rajabai Tower because his mother's name was Rajabai. And it rings every 15 minutes because she couldn't see. They were staying very close by. And so she couldn't see. That's why she had to hear every 15 minutes the bells. That's why Premchand Roychand was a seminal figure in Indian stock market. He became a banker, he became an industrialist. He started setting up many of these companies and collecting money from other people. and they used to trade cotton at what is now known as Horniman Circle. It used to be actually the front for the town hall of Mumbai, which is now known as Asiatic Library. And they used to be around that, selling cotton in kilos and mun, as we call it, 20 kilos. They also started trading in stocks. And the noise became too much, and people will sort of complain to police, and they started sort of putting some lathi on those guys, and they would start going into some corner, which is now known as Dalal Street. I'm making up this, but I'm just making up stories for you to understand how this thing would have happened in reality, that no initiatives which last so long happened by design. They happened because they are useful to the society. And the technology of those days of creating the liquidity was create a very large floor like this place, and people would get together, meet, give quotes. Earlier, they used to negotiate by keeping handkerchief on each other's hand and then negotiate with the fingers. Today also, if you go to Myanmar border, there is a green stone, which is now known as jade, jade stone, that is negotiated that way, even now. And then it became large, so they started putting on the blackboards, and then it became even more noisy, and then they developed a methodology which was hand signals. So this was Cell, this was Bhai. Bhagirath Bhai can teach us more. He has been on the ring for a large part of his life. He was president of BAC in, again, the most tumultuous time. But effectively, that was the technology. It was believed that the floor brings the liquidity, and by shouting at each other harder, you end up getting more liquidity, right? And it was true in Chicago, it was true in New York. Only the tall people with big voice could go to the floor, because otherwise, I have seen people's shirts getting torn on many days on floor, right? And so it was a very tough life for physical work while trading, you wouldn't believe. That was the technology. It lasted from 1875 till 1991, when, before independence on the Second World War, I think BSc closed down for several months because of the war. And UK government didn't want us to run our markets because they wanted to take away all the production of food and material from here for the war efforts. Even people, they were just throwing out into the war. Large portion of British and Allied people, if you have seen a movie called Dunkirk, if you have not seen, watch it. They look white faces. That is, it is a whitewashing of the history. It was, most of them were Indians. Okay, so large portion of Indians were thrown into the World Wars I and II, stock market was closed by government decree. But when we became independent, we had a lot of other priorities, and we wanted to be a socialist, because our leaders, who had most of them had studied in UK, and they were considering themselves as deprived people, although they were amongst the nobility here. Mahatma Gandhi was not poor. His father was a prime minister in Rajkot. They could go to London, itself proves. I couldn't go to London even in 1991 because my father did not have money. Right? They went in 1890s, so you can imagine how rich they would be. But they were feeling deprived. And so they got impressed by a new philosophy, which was coming as a philosophy of equal framework, which actually developed out of the experiences of London. I'll tell you the story. I talk 40 hours over 3-4 months for any course I take, but I tell only stories, right? Sometimes I used to do high maths, but I've left that. But that is another sort of point of how things developed. But our leaders were, in a way, deprived people in their mind, and they wanted to follow socialism, And like everything we do everything half-hearted. So we also did communism in our own way. We only declared ourselves socialist, but we didn't do anything else below that. So all land reforms, कुछ जरूरत ही नहीं था, खाली लिखना ही जरूरत था. That lasted till 91, even later on till 2014. The government announces policy. After that, what happens, nobody knows. But policy is what we will discuss ad nauseum, and policy is what television, newspapers will tell us, great policy. But was execution नहीं हो रहा है. जरूरत ही नहीं था, because we are discussing people, we are intellectual, right? So that is how India lasted till 91, and then we had very little foreign exchange available for 15 days, and then we had to send our gold from India to UK. And I just joined my job that time at IDBI. And we were like 2 kilometers away from RBI, but every day you would see the news. And India had no choice but to liberalize by removing that license Raj and all. And then the market prices started going up. And the government of that day thought it is happening because of their great work that they are doing. But after 1 year, they figured out that it was done by actually a person called Harshad Mehta. So they were feeling very happy, and when it came out, it was not Harshad Mehta alone, but he became a symbol of an activity which some people who had actually failed in the administration wanted to play out. That doesn't mean that he was a saint. He was also basically doing it for his self-interest and had become amongst the richest people in India in a very short time using that activity, which was completely illegal. But when it started coming in newspapers, the market collapsed. And that time, the government realized that we need to set up an exchange, because these people who are running this show of stock exchange are not running in the interest of the public. If you have to go from a socialist framework, which was basically doing banking as a fulcrum of providing credit to the country, if it moves to stock markets, which is a market-based activity, we need a better functioning, more transparent, more regulated activity. And that's how the SEBI was given powers. There are, again, many, many interesting stories which both me and Bhagirath Bhai can share with you at some other time, many of them hilarious. But it happened, and somewhere the NSE was conceived. That time, first time, not many exchanges in the world were actually automated. And there also, they were democracies of the brokers, by the brokers. They were feeling that if it goes to automation, what is my work, right? And so they were opposing it. So that's why New York was not automated. UK, London had tried to become automated in 1988. They had spent £1 billion and failed in a project called Taurus. And so everywhere there was a failure of technology for a variety of reasons. India had also tried setting up over-the-counter exchange of India. Many of us have forgotten about it, but there was a lot of excitement with great Ravi Mohan, if you recall, who later on became CEO of CRISIL. He was ahead of his time because of various reasons. But that's where a team was set up in IDBI, because RBI had actually spoiled its name very badly those days. It was actually RBI problem. Harshad Mehta was only the, what I call, larger beneficiary of the RBI problem, but RBI kind of moved out from public perception by making Harshad Mehta into villain. But RBI had also spoiled its name badly those days, and that's why IDBI, which was actually a baby of RBI, IDBI was set up as a division of RBI, and then 1976 under IDBI Act, it was taken out as a new sort of new institution. But till I joined in 91, even later on, till 2000, it had exactly the same spelling mistake in its policies the RBI had. So I was told when I joined that we follow all RBI policies. And I said, to what extent? And that guy said, I was in Guwahati office working for IDBI, and there was a fire. And somebody said, "Kya karna chahiye?" He said, "Call RBI manual and read what to do in case of fire." So that was the IDBI for you. But basically, whatever the condition, IDBI set up a team of 5 people. Before that, it had set up Exim Bank, it had set up SIDBI, but even SEBI was set up by IDBI. But it had a reputation for setting up newer activities, and this NSE was given to them. There are 5 people selected. And then it was realized that if you have to do automated exchange, then there is a problem because OTC failed. And if you have to take people, the lines, telephone lines will not be reliable. You have to pay a lot of bribes to get a telephone line at your home for 5 years. After 5 years, you might get it, provided the telephone linesman is happy with you. And you might recall the telephone linesman used to be the highest dowry in those days. So that was the case, and we had to say, how do you create an automated exchange? When computers used to fail often, computers were not reliable, we were told that NASDAQ is an automated exchange. And we believed so, like America being a heaven in our mind even now. And then later on, I realized that in NASDAQ, they used to give quotes. There were dealers across, and America had a good telephone system. So they will actually place the quote, two-way quote, that if you want to buy, that guy will buy from you at 100, and if you want to sell, he will, if you want to sell, he will buy from you at 98 and stuff like that. The two-way quotes, those dealers used to give on the computers, it will go to the main system and be sent to everyone. But when it had to match, you had to call up that guy, the other side who had given two-way quote. So it was actually a telephone-based system, but we thought it is automated. And so we designed an automated system, but we realized that telephone lines are not there, and computers are not reliable. But by quirk of fate, the computer started becoming reliable those days. And we devised a new methodology, which was basically satellite telecom. What had happened is India has been sending satellites to the sky for many years before that, before 91 also. Because rest of the world was sending, we were also sending. After that, we were doing nothing much. So we said, पूरा आर्यभट्ट 1, 2, 3, INSAT 1, 2, 3 सब खाली है. एक आध दूरदर्शन बड़ी मुश्किल से चल रहा है. And so we said, boss, you give us this transponder. But it used to take 60 approvals for every one small satellite terminal we used to set up. And we still set up almost 2,000 terminals across India. But that satellite telecom network, two-way satellite telecom network, one way, that is TV-based, started coming up in India. ZTV started first. And two-way was set up by NSE first time in India. And that became basically a place where the entire nation got connected using one single screen-based system. And you could get wherever you were, in Mumbai or in Satara or in Jammu or wherever you were. If you placed an order, you will get a response less than 2 seconds, because the satellite used to be 36,000 kilometers on top. The signal will go there, go to the exchange place, then get all the information, come back. It will travel 144,000 kilometers, plus a lot of electronics in between. So it was almost 2 seconds you could get response. But 2 seconds became a huge rage. Before that, if you see in 1850s, how the communications used to happen between long distance. If the ship had to come closer to the shore, the captain would send a pigeon to his lover's house. And then she would go and buy the shares of that company. And that pigeon service became very important. And that pigeon service became corporatized. And that is now known as Reuters, if you heard of Reuters, right? It actually came out of pigeon service, okay? I mean, one of their larger money-making activity was that. And then when the telegram came, telegram used to be a very important thing. A Bombay Stock Exchange broker will tell his runner, there used to be runners on the floor, but off the floor also, saying, Tata ordinary ka bhav itna hai, that his man will start running to GPO. You know where GPO is from Bombay Stock Exchange, right? Almost 1.5 kilometers. That guy will start running punch, telegram will go to the GPO in Calcutta or Ahmedabad. And that's how there used to be basically the line used to be there, where a lot of arbitrage between these cities, Delhi, Ahmedabad, Calcutta. Actually, Ahmedabad, Calcutta were very old, almost as old as the BSE. But that was the technology framework. Brokers or anyone who trades, you use the technology to the maximum. Whenever it came, the first first group that would use it would always be people who are in finance. Because every small little advantage matters. One of the brokers who came from Rajasthan, today he is probably 75, he told me that he used to, once in the evening on All India Radio, they used to announce some stock prices. That was his only way to get information about stock prices in Rajasthan's small village. And so they used to use radios also, but telegram, then telephones came. And there used to be lines from the floor to UTI or LIC, like big institutions, but also to Calcutta. And there used to be persons standing continuously. And those guys used to be called linewalas. Okay, so some of those things we have all forgotten. But that is the usage of technology, although the floor remained there almost for 300, 400 years as a single technology for the trading. But the technology started getting used in back offices, in matching post-trade related activities on settlements, and the technology of printing of shares. Shares used to be actually physical shares, right? And they started becoming important because then you had to put security framework, because anyone could print. If you come to NSE or go to BSE, we have old share certificates starting from 1870s and all. You can see them. But basically towards mid-90s, people became very, very innovative and figured out that if you have to print currency notes, then it is very clear that every police understands it is a crime, right? And you can only do 100 rupee ka note. But if you print ACC certificates, then it will be like 1 lakh rupees, and it's not even, the police doesn't understand only. So it's not a crime at all, right? So instead of printing money, people started printing share certificates at the same time. And so we had these automated exchanges. NSE became automated in debt trading, which was basically improving on the RBI's activity in around March 94 and inaugurated in around June 94. Equities market became automated. First trade started happening on November 3, 94, Diwali day. But later on, around June, July onwards, 95 onwards, BSE became automated. So pretty much both of them have sort of automated. And India became the largest automated market in the world till date. Today, NSE does, on a good day, around 17 crore transactions, that is trades, in one day. And it gets around 1,500 crore orders in 6 hours, 15 minutes. There is no system in the world, no Twitter, no Facebook, no Google. They can give you bogus results and you will not complain. But if I give you 1 paisa idhar udhar, all of you will come and say, ki boss, kya kar rahe ho? If I give you response time which is more than 100 microseconds, you will say slow ho gaya. Television se ki band ho gaya NSE. Google, Facebook, Outlook kabhi bhi band ho jata hai, koi farak nahi padta hai. It's not that they don't charge somebody, they charge. But here our expectation from our own self, that when it starts and it starts working, then you have to somehow make it work and you have to be Superman. Somehow, sometimes it stops, across the world it stops, but in India, we have different expectations, so we end up troubling people who are supposed to manage it. I think the person who is listening, but he's supposed to go home, is now getting bored. so I'll try to complete it fast. But basically, this certificate thing happened, and one day, in one single day, I got 40 crore rupees worth fake certificates in the NSE's clearing house. Those days, in 1995, 96, 40 crore was like a big amount. Today is almost probably 2,000-3,000 crore. And so we went after the broker who had introduced, and he told me that, sir, I'm going to jail, I'll come out tomorrow. But what will happen to you? So I said, ठीक है, आप बाहर आना फिर देखते हैं, right? So, but that, it kind of getting introduced at a frequency which was unheard of. And we had in pipeline a methodology to sort of create a new Depositories Act. A new organization was set up, again, almost same time in 94 or 92, Stockholding Corporation, to create a depository which was physical depository. But after this entire fiasco of fake certificates, we went to government and said that if you have to do physical 1 share certificate of 10 crore shares, instead make it dematerialized. And that's how the Indian Depositories Act 1998 actually started with dematerialized shares. Again, it was a revolutionary idea. America's depository from 1960s, they still do physicals. They have no accounts of individuals. They have only broker accounts. After that, who owns American shares, nobody knows. So all what you think must be happening in America because it is a heaven and we are hell, it is the other way around. So last 2-3 weeks back, one UK diplomat came to me, he's a good friend, and he said, now what next reform? I said, now Europe has to reform. You learn from us, right? But depositories came, then real-time margining came, because we started having a lot of defaults. MS shoes, you might have heard. In 95, some of you are old. MS shoe default was a eye-opener to all of us, that how do we ensure that these things don't happen. Then we started doing, we used to have 15 days trading cycle and settlement thereafter sometime, whenever we feel like. It could happen after 60 days, 80 days, and stuff like that. So that we made weekly cycles, and we started settling them pretty much next week. Then we made it T+3, T+2. This all require tremendous amount of technological innovations and change, not only by the exchanges, but also all the brokers. And brokers also kept pace with that. New brokers came in, because earlier each city had its own broker groups and the liquidity was divided. Now it's one single. Today also, I was telling some of the brokers in Bangalore, I had a meeting with them. And I was saying, in the best days, in my opinion, for stock markets, I mean, what I call the go-go years of our lives were Harshad Mehta days, 91. After that, no such times came for stock market. Okay, what you see today is not even comparable. People started selling, I mean, SSC certificate, not ACC. And people started buying those, right? So that was the time. There was a mania of stock market, right? Harshad Mehta's birthday, all his stocks will supposed to reach some unbelievable highs, and I think before that all this scam came out. But basically, those were the days where we used to trade 200 crores a day maximum. 200 crore rupees a day we used to trade. Today, on a value basis, money which supposed to exchange hands if it gets settled is 2 lakh crore rupees. Okay, those days 10,000 trades would be great. Today 17 crore trades, nobody cares. 1,500 crore orders, nobody cares, right? And we think we are stupid, right? America must be great. New York Stock Exchange doesn't do 1/10 of our volumes in terms of number of trades. They may do value more because they have dollar which is still ruling. But in terms of number of trades, we do very, very, very large number of trades than anything else in the world. The nearest exchange is in Brazil called B3, is around 1/4 of our size in terms of number of trades per day, right? So that is the kind of size, and India has only now 7 crore unique PANs which invest in Indian markets. Now you think 7 crore क्या चीज़ है? Because 150 crore में 7 crore कुछ नहीं होता. But that 7 crore unique pens, they are not duplicates. Like if you see depository numbers, one person can have 2 depository accounts in the same depository or 2 different depositories. But I'm just saying NSE has 7 crore unique pens. I have 21 crore accounts. I have removed all the duplication and just 7 crore. But 7 crore accounts are actually 5 crore households. And 5 crore households is around 20% of India's total number of households. So we have already reached close to 20% directly. If you add EPFO, insurance companies whose money also comes in, and mutual funds and all, again, mutual funds almost have similar number of people, type of people like us, but EPFO is slightly different. We are reaching pretty much 50% of India today. It is, many times I tell politicians, in fact, after budget in this TV, sometimes they call me, especially when budget is bad, because then nobody is willing to talk. They require people like me to sort of fill the gap, you know. So after the discussion, I tried to say that this was a great budget. That guy said, now that this guy Ashish Chauhan is saying it's a great budget, few lakh people in India will be happy because of stock market. And I said, not few lakh. That time there were 2 crore people. So I said 2 crore people will be happy. In COVID, before COVID we had 3.5 crore unique pens. Today we have 7 crore. In COVID we have added literally 100% more in 2 years. And this could be done only by technology. We are the largest technological network which is so precise. Every order that comes, we give you a new order book, okay? Twitter can give you any, when you try refreshing, you will keep on getting new 3-month-old, 3-hour-old, 3-second-old. I can't do that. I cannot give you 3-month-old price today or just now, even not 3-minute-old, right? Because you will come and hit me, ki boss kya kar rahe ho? Right? So that is where basically, and then we came with derivatives, we came with currencies derivatives and so on and so forth. And every day, new changes are coming, that is customer money, customer pledge, repledge, interoperability of clearing houses, and all these changes. Now there is a framework which is being discussed is to take your money, which broker keeps, to the clearing house. And at some stage, you will not even have to pay money till the time settlement happens. Only ASBA blockage will happen, and so on and so forth. So a lot of new technological changes will happen. But I can assure you, despite all what you hear, what you see, because what is news, right? What is unusual is news. A dog biting man is not a news, right? Millions of people get bitten by dogs every day. But man biting dog is the news. And newspapers have only so much to fill, right? And they want to give excitement, even television and all. So they give you all the bad news, all the wrong stuff. But in terms of corporate governance, which I did not touch upon today, when a company places their information, within less than a second, that information, without anyone touching, it goes onto exchange websites. Both. There is no system in the world like that. And when I joined this business in 1991-92, getting an annual report was a very difficult task. Most companies used to extend dates to 18 months and whatever number, and you never got any information. Today, quarterly information is actually hugely available. If the company doesn't give it for 2 quarters, we just stop trading. We suspend. This ASM, GSM, DSM, and stuff like that you hear, it's basically algorithmic way to run. If the company's prices go up too much, go down too much, they are put into different price bands. And I just want, because what has happened in last 1 or 2 months also, there is a lot of debate on corporate governance in India, small investors' rights. When the ease of doing business ranking was done, I think it last 2-3 years it has stopped because it was found to be faulty. But when ease of business doing business was done by World Bank, we were consistently ranking in 5 to 7 in the world, top 5 to top 7, ahead of US, Europe and all, because the small investor protection in India is unbelievable. At the same time, the businesses sometimes don't perform, they go down. Sometimes people also who run it also do malpractices. But overall, this is amongst the best thing that has happened in India over last 148 years now. BSE was set up in 1875, 9th of July. And so 148 years, there is no country with our per capita GDP income having such a market. No country having double our per capita GDP, 4 times our per capita GDP, 8 times our per capita GDP. There is no such country. We are a unique nation where a person sitting in Jammu or Dibrugarh or Jorhat is putting her hard-earned money into a company in Salem, in Coimbatore or near Coimbatore, assuming that her money will be used for the right purpose. And if the profit comes, she will get a share of that profit. She will have right over that. It is such a leap of faith. It is unbelievable. We are an extremely trusted society. And it has come that trust has not happened overnight. Trust doesn't get built overnight. There have been many mishaps like Arshad Mehta, Ketan Parekh. Before that also, every 10 years there used to be some plus, minus. But people who have invested in markets usually have made money more than people who did not invest, and that includes me. But effectively, this is one of the best things that has happened to India, and I'm delighted that all of you could sit and still listen to my blabbering. I hope this was useful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashish. That was very mesmerizing and a good, visit to the history of the Indian Stock Exchange. May I request now Vice President Deepak Gaisas to take over and offer his comments.
Good evening. I think first of all, Ashish bhai, thank you very much. And I'm so glad that for centenary celebration, we have got somebody who has run an organization which was 150-year-old, like BSE. So we are truly honored. And I think your ability of storytelling is just enviable. The way in which you narrated the whole thing, not for a second even we felt that you were talking about a mundane business of stock exchange and technology. So thank you so much. What I don't envy you for is your inability to trade. I mean, it is like you're a great chef, but you're not allowed to eat. And I can imagine how torturous it can be. I think some part of history which even I got to know first time, and I didn't realize, I thought always zero was a great invention for India and especially IT industry because of binary. But decimal, I didn't realize that it was origin of entire calculation. Because at iFlex, I remember we did a project on US stock exchange, which is NYSE and NASDAQ. And I'm sure you know, but they were not using decimal till 2000. They were using 1/8, 2/8, and 3/8 as a quotation. And when we converted that into decimal, it was a huge project. We didn't realize it initially, because suddenly from 8 quotations, you got into 100 quotations. And two-way quotations of 200, the resources and the technology and the communication lines which were required were humongously different. And I remember that project, I wish they would have started doing it much earlier. Probably it would have been a different thing. Even things like algebra and algorithm, I never realized it was Arabic al something coming in. So I think even if it is not true, I think it is a great story to tell. Some of what I say is true. Yeah, of course. I don't deny it at all. And I think your way of telling the startups and the Columbus and the venture capitalist, and sometimes they call it virtual capitalist, So these are all new definitions and new dimensions. I saw them, and I think we must thank you for that. And from 1875, from floor to screen-based trading, I think I'm witness of some part of that. And I'm glad I was connected with NSE and both BSE. And NSE especially because the first joint venture of NSE with NSE we did in iFlex called Dotex. And I think your IT head was here and he remembers that very much. Of course, we sold that back to NSE. And again, I was lucky to sell one more company called Cogensis because I was part of Cogensis investment. And so we dealt with you guys twice. Hopefully, we'll come back again to sell something more. Of course, these guys are very tough. We don't make much of money there. I can assure you that they have been managed very well. But NSE really set an example for the world. I mean, I will not exaggerating that because NSE really is much ahead of times in both technology, the governance, and I'm glad that we were a contributor to that technology in terms of data warehousing or vigilance compliance modules on data warehousing and all those algorithms that were built with Satish Naralkar and company. And I remember Satish telling me one day that you were talking about a couple of seconds delay. I think once one of those satellites which we're using started shaking up there. And therefore, the signals were not coming in, and the buffer was getting blocked because of signals not going. And NSE guys were actually holding that antenna and shaking it similar way to ensure that the signals are not disrupted. Because a couple of seconds disturbance means crores of rupees either lost or gained by somebody, which was not possible to do. I think overall, technology has been used in both NSE and now in BSE. I still remember your BSE tandem computers I talked about, because tandem was one of the fault-free, fault-tolerant system, and probably first time tandem was used in stock exchange by BSE, and it gave them tremendous results. But NSE is a class example, I would say, and to be copied. As you rightly said, probably the next revolution should be in Europe to copy Indian stock exchanges, the way in which we do it. And I'm glad in Triak Mandir we have this talk today. Thanks to Chitra sir for that. Because the way in which we adopt, Uday told us about the elections, and I think he was wrong, but it is not a delay of 15 minutes. After the last voter votes, you get the results online real time. That is the kind of voting that we physical verification. That's the compliance part, but the results are actually available immediately. So that kind of technology, and then we hear from the person who is IIT Bombay and IIM Calcutta, and has gone through the various corporates, and still can tell the stories and make you laugh, because all those stories. See, I've been teaching all along, but I remember that people don't remember what you said, but they definitely remember the stories. So every aspect that you talk today with the story, I think all of us will remember that. And tomorrow morning when we talk without SVB or with SVB, I think we still remember your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do you wish to take any questions? Are there any questions from the audience? Okay.
Hello. I think most of you might have this question in mind, but my question, because we are waiting for NSE to get listed long, so when it is happening?
Yeah, this question also sort of gets asked in private by most. Effectively, I have done listing of BSE on NSE. I have done listing of CDSL on NSE and many other listings in my life. So in a way, for me, listing is a partly mechanical process and partly approval process. Approval is what we are waiting. Once it comes, the mechanical part is something I am used to doing. We were ready when I was not here. I joined only 7-8 months back, but before me, also the previous CEO had prepared. So broadly, the paperwork is slightly old, but ready. We need to update a little bit. But once we get a signal that the approval is in sight, then only we need to go, because we are not only sort of regulated, and regulators, but we are also regulated, right? So it's two things, and we have some serious allegations against us of the past, which became even more bizarre last year. And so there is a feeling at the highest level in India, in policy making circles, that NSE might go BSE way, what happened in a decline. So the first job which I had was to sort of make life business as usual, rather than create more news about something which is already sort of rage in every housewife's mind, that who is the Baba, right? Or who is Yogi. Not only in India, but in Brazil also, in Peru also, because this story has become, if you have not heard, please search. But basically, there was this feeling which in a way was told to me that you need to first clean and also run it on a systemic way, so that India's reputation doesn't get sullied further. And that's what my job has been. My previous role at BSE, I used to be very outspoken, and I used to speak probably 3, 4, 5 times a day. I was also in media pretty much every day. This is my first public meeting in last 8 months since I joined, right? Because it was important to just settle down, create an organization which works every day, which doesn't close down, which is forward-looking, which is able to do changes that the regulator wants for the betterment of the markets, for investor services and all. And that's what it will take me some time before the signals start coming that, okay, you can do it now. But overall, I have this belief that any group which is in a way having more than a few people should have an ability, or should be compulsorily forced to give out its information to public. And listing is basically that process of forcing the entity, whether it is a cooperative, whether it is an association, or whether it is a company. And that way, I still believe that it adds the public information, adds a tremendous value. It brings that responsibility onto the management on a daily basis, because the stakeholders can ask any questions after looking at the information, whether it is right, wrong. And that's why last 2 quarters since I joined, after each result of NSE, which we declare now, as if we are listed, and I also do a conference call with all my shareholders who want to participate in that. And so it's basically, for me, the transparency which we teach to all the other companies, we need to live by that. And that's what, in a way, whether we list finally when, I don't know, because it took me almost, I joined BSE in 2009 and I listed in 2017. So it took me 8 years to do what was required for BSE to become listed. I don't know how much time it will take and how much time I have in NSE, because I am also getting old, and there are retirement ages also for people to work. So whatever time it takes, but in some ways we will make it, or we have kind of substantially gone in a direction where all of you who have interest in NSE, you don't have to be shareholders, but you will get to know more about NSE, its workings, including our regulatory decisions and all, will start coming onto the, because we are also regulators, and you should know what went on in discussions and how these decisions have been taken for regulating our members or companies and all.
Ashish, I have, actually I need your comments on 2 questions. We have discussed this earlier, but maybe the latest update. First one is that what is the current status on increasing trading hours for equity markets in India? And the second one is that current status or your comments on fractional trading in shares.
So fractional trading is basically, again, a very odd concept. Why is because India allows you to trade one share, even if it is of 5 paisa. अभी उसका fraction करके करोगे क्या? It is an American idea where they do it. But if you allow that pooling, it has to happen through pooling, right? Then the person who pools ends up earning a lot of money from you. So if you put 5 rupees, probably 1 rupee will go in managing your that 5 rupees. Whereas there will be severe issues on how to manage voting for that. Because 10 people have bought, 6 want to vote in favor, 4 want to, how will you do it? It is done in mutual funds. It is done by the fund managers and not by, whereas here, everyone is owner. In fact, India has a concept of Benami Act, okay? If you own any asset on behalf of anyone else, it is illegal except in specific case of depository by an act of parliament, Depositories Act 1998, that depository is a legal owner on behalf of beneficial owner like you and me, right? So that is the only exception in stock market where somebody can own on behalf of other people. But if you do this pooling, that person will be legal owner, you will be the beneficial owner, and it is going to create another problem. Of course, mutual funds are also allowed, but there the ownership rights don't go to the owner. It's the mutual fund trust, not the AMC. AMC is actually the manager of the funds. The trust is what owns basically, and then it issues the units which you own, not the stock itself, right? So there are minor nuances, but effectively the fractional part has so many complexities with very little benefit that it's better to do split of shares or bonus issues, which will get you the same results if you want. कि एक शेयर का भाव 50,000 रुपया है, somebody said कि मेरे को MRF खरीदना है, इसलिए मुझे fractional करना है, तो tell MRF management to just split the shares in 1 into say 100, तो 50,000 का 500 रुपया आ जाएगा, then all of us can invest, right? So it's a more to do with the management doesn't want small people to come in or whatever their philosophy. How would you actually fight with that, right? And it is for 1 or 2 such examples. Otherwise, most companies, when they go above some reasonable number of, price, then they start splitting or giving bonuses. So that's where that issue is. On the longer trading hours, again, when I started working, it was 2 hours trading, right, Bhagat bhai? 12 to 2. And when NSE started, it was sort of 3 hours or something, then it became 6 hours. And 6 hours, 15 minutes has remained pretty much for 30 years. People who started after us automation have gone for 24 hours. Today morning, when you open your television at 8 in the morning, what do you hear? SGX Nifty, right? That SGX Nifty is trading at sunset, market will open. What self-respecting country can give its price formation to a small, tiny little island sitting in middle of nowhere, right? So it is basically our lethargy which allows us to continue as is. In other regulations, nobody asks you to actually broker's choices. In this, they get asked, so they kind of say, no, I have to go for walking my dog, or I have to do yoga, that's why I don't have to do it. But there are other people who don't want longer trading hours, like foreigners. You might think foreigners want longer trading hours. Many people sitting in Singapore, our 3:30 is actually their 6 o'clock. They want to go home. They are saying, boss, don't start longer hours. Otherwise, we have to do. The traders who trade, I hope all of you are investors and not traders, right? Because many times now when you read television comments or social media, you think buying in the morning and selling in the afternoon is called investment. It is not, right? You have to do 3-5 years of investments, and at least 20 years is better. But basically, for me, investors, it will not increase volumes, okay? Many people think I'm doing it for increasing volume. It is not, because evening trades are usually thin. What it gives you as an investor a choice to come back from your office in the evening and execute your investment trades. Of course, if you want to trade, you are welcome. But your investment trades today, because in COVID, when you were there, anyway you were at home. But today, now offices started working, boss. Sometimes you want it in the evening, right? And somewhere on the line, if one more important news, because we tend to think, I mean, what is stock market, right? It is taking all the information about the economy, about the world, about the industry, and about the company, and giving opinion on prices. People who want to sell, who want to buy, right? And now we are making all of you believe that all the news about the world, about the economy, about that particular industry, and about that company will happen only between 9:15 and 3:30 every day. Mr. Modi cannot announce demonetization at 8. It has to happen during the market hours. ऐसा नहीं होता है, उसको जब भी करना है करता है. But that time, a foreigner is able to take hedge in Singapore. But all our Indian investors are being deprived by us. Right? So there are many, many such stuff. We are now, these are some of the reasons why when we are a developing country, right? We are not developed. Developed people, rich people can splurge money and still they will remain rich mostly. But we are poor people, we have to work harder, right? Why we want to be so lethargic? And that's where, I mean, if Singapore can work 16 hours a day on our, sort of our trades, how we can't have at least work 12, 15 hours? And Jabipi, it's like shops. When I was young in my village, all shops used to close between 12 and 4 in the afternoon. I don't know, it happened to Mumbai in 50 years back. But now, with modernity, all of us, all the shopkeepers are keeping shops open. That is what, when all the shopkeepers wanted to close, they closed and the consumers couldn't get a choice. But one new guy came, he started offering more timing. People went to him, and that's how he became successful. Here, we are saying, I will not open and you also have to close. अरे बॉस तुमको धंधा नहीं करना है बंद करो ना, शाम को नहीं करना है आप बंद करो, दूसरे तो करने दो. जो इन्वेस्टर को नहीं करना है, he can also keep quiet. जिसको करना है उसको करने दो. But why you are depriving other people of choices, right? So that is broadly the issue. At the same time, we have to take all the brokers along because investors, anyway, some what we call day traders have one kind of conceptual issue ki today I have to focus for 6 hours, 15 minutes on the screen. Now, if you do it for say 12 hours, I have to do it for 12 hours, which is like very large. But world does it, right? They have solved that problem. And you don't have to do it every second, right? And you can also put on your mobile some alerts. If prices go up or down, it will give you alerts so that you can wake up and trade and stuff like that. But effectively, all of us will have to sort of do hard work. We have set up a committee of brokers to figure out what will take. Slowly it will happen, mostly probably in derivatives. We will create a framework, go to SEBI, take their approval, then come back to you. But it's not going to happen suddenly. It will happen gradually in sort of index to begin with, then stock derivatives later on if it's allowed and stuff like that.
Good evening, sir. So first of all, thank you for taking the time out and giving us such a in-depth lesson on the history of stock market and how the technology shaped in the formation of BSE, NSE. So my question was related to technology. What do you feel is the next big technological thing in terms of stock market? Because we keep hearing these new terms about artificial intelligence and AI-based trading, high-frequency trading. So where are we headed now? Can you also give a glimpse of the future with respect to technology in market?
The future is so brilliant, it is unpredictable, right? So you can only try to guess, and in some ways we couldn't have envisaged what happened over the last 32 years since we kind of went into information technology in markets across the world. And it has now basically in a way become a microsecond world, and BSE does 6 microseconds response. Probably it will go to nanoseconds, but each time you get that advantage becomes less because the changes don't happen so fast in information and all. But if you again look at it, I mean, what I told you the story are 2-3 concepts of pulling off money, corporate governance, how do you bring profits and all, but also transaction processing, which is what the stock exchanges are usually about corporate governance information and the transaction processing, how fast you can do it. Broadly for me, even if you do in nanoseconds, which we might, in a way you are doing incremental. What you did from manual to screen was a very large change. From microseconds to nanoseconds is, although it's pretty significant, but it's not significant from most practical purposes. But after that, why do you invest, right? Philosophically. And why do you think this company is a better investment vis-a-vis the other company? It's because you are predicting the future, right? The entire human endeavor, since humankind has existed, is about predicting future. 10 years, 20 years, 1 month, 1 day, 1 second, 1 microsecond, right? And that's why we go to all the astrologers. We have this new astrologian markets also. Sometimes I see कि आज चंद्र यहाँ पर है तो आज मार्केट ऊपर जाएगा, आज कन्या राशि को प्रवास है तो मुझे लग रहा है 1/12 ऑफ पीपल वो बोरिया बिस्तर बांध के ट्रेन में बैठेगा. बट बेसिकली it's a way to predict future. And all of us know that most of us, even the most knowledgeable, are prone to failing. And what we consider mumbo jumbo is also prone to failing, probably slightly more, slightly less. And there are only finite outcomes. So effectively, that guy also says market will go up, and somebody else also says market will go up. Finally, either will go up or go down, right? So effectively, prediction of future is what human endeavor is all about. And that's how the progress happens, by predicting future. Shorter time it is, better it is. The prediction percentages being successful is higher. The longer it goes, that's again philosophy of risk management and other stuff. But basically that's the framework. So who can predict future better? 1 second from now, or 1 microsecond from now, or 1 hour from now? You have to be right only 51% or 50.01%, and you will become a trillionaire, right? Because you have to be just extra right compared to others. Otherwise, when toss is raised, either it's this way or that way, right? Head or tail. So broadly, it's 50% unless you are Shakuni Mama, right? So basically, people who can predict future, and that's where the artificial intelligence, if it is able to predict future better. There are so many examples of machine learning. When you were studying, probably we also used to have courses in machine learning, but we all knew कि बस खास कुछ होने वाला नहीं है. Not many of us went there, but today, and it used to be a brute force method. Computers were not that great to give you those many cycles. Today, computers have become much faster, larger, and stuff. So that's where either brute force or doing algorithms, multi-factor variant analysis and all, you might be able to predict better than others slightly, and that's where the endeavor is. So clearly, but for trading also, like high-frequency trading you said, people have all sorts of algorithms. For example, the news feed which comes of every type, right? These algorithms read. Okay, there are algorithms which do normal arbitrage, saying 100 rupees idhar hai, 100.5 idhar hai, to kharido idhar, becho udhar. So that's what I call a simple arbitrage. But there are like millions of different arbitrage algorithms which go on. So there are several types of algorithms, but some of them read what is coming in, say, news. They take TV news, convert into text, or otherwise they read up and say, American president is talking about a bank. And if he makes statement about, in his speech, if he speaks about a particular bank 6 times, he'll start buying those stocks or selling those stocks. And so during Trump time, whenever he made China noise, some stocks will go down. because now there is no human involved. Those algorithms are making the decisions and placing those orders. So if I get 1,500 crore orders a day, almost 95, 98% are not having humans deciding. Humans have decided on the algorithm beforehand. Some of them are artificial intelligence based, some of them are not. But basically that's what, again, endeavor will remain about future prediction. Whichever way you can do it, by astrology, by having that fish which can tell you which team will win, whatever way, if it is correct and you believe, and hopefully you will not lose money, but people will continue to use newer methodologies, newer ways of doing things.
Thank you. So before I would like to sincerely offer our thanks from behalf of Lokmanya Seva Sangha for taking our time out and enlightening the Parlekars on the technology evolution in stock markets. Before we close, let me just remind you about tomorrow's program, Rera Rerata Fera. So do make yourself available in the evening, and with that we will call closure of this session. I'll request all of you to stand up for the national anthem.